Hey there, welcome everybody. Thursday, yeah, that's right. You're one day away from the weekend when then you have to go 2 days cold turkey without Mike and me. I know it's tough, so we'll try to make this next half an hour as meaningful as we possibly can. So let's tune in on Madonna. No, just kidding. We resume jury deliberations, or we don't. The jury resumes deliberations in the Biggs trial today, marking the 78th day of proceedings. And it's tough. It's tough to wait on a verdict. I'm struggling with a deep sense of personal disappointment. I had hoped to give a closing argument that would seal the deal, and instead I've been panned in the mainstream media as meandering and unfocused and so on and so forth. And maybe I was. Obviously, when you're on a big stage, you want to perform.
They can go and practice safe sex too, Norm. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I mean, look, what the hardest thing about having a craft or a profession is, you work at it, and sometimes you're better than others, and you have to recognize your failings and move on. I'm not sure. I don't like the criticism. It hurts. It stings, and I'll take it. And I know if I lose, the haters are going to have a field day because they'll say, "Well, this and Alex Jones. Why would anybody hire me?" And I don't know, but they do. We took
those are my favorite comments that I see under your tweets is talking about, how much money you cost Alex Jones, and it's just like, man, you guys are unassailable wit.
Well, and there is the old sort of get a life thing, but no, I mean, so what the jury, I was the fifth in line of the defendants, and the terrain had pretty well been covered. And several of us talked before I got up and said, what jurors do we need to reach? And so I tried to tailor or pitch my remarks to them. And rather than getting up and orating in some linear and narrated fashion to national ballpark and 20,000 people, I had individual conversations with individual jurors about things that, based on their questionnaire, I thought that they would want to hear about this case. And so it probably did lack the thematic unity of some of the other presentations. Having said all that, I'd probably do it the same all again, because I said what I wanted to say, and if the mainstream media doesn't like it, maybe the problem is with the mainstream media. But I don't want to be too defensive, because I know that there is always room for improvement. That's what I tell the younger lawyers in my office when they struggle. It's called the practice for a reason. If it was called the perfect, some of us would get there, but nobody does. And so I wait now. The jury note is the jury wants direction on where to find a couple of particular exhibits. There'll be argument about whether the court should give them additional direction. Given the judge's, I don't think the judge has his thumb on the scale, although many people think he does, but I think he'll probably give the government what it wants. So the jury will get some further direction on some evidence today. They could return a verdict today. I expect a verdict by the close of business tomorrow. I don't think that this is a jury which, after 4 months, is going to want to come back for weeks and weeks more deliberation. But we'll find out. That's the beauty of it all. I'm within about, we've been instructed to stay within 15 minutes of the courthouse. And as luck would have it, I'm 13 minutes away on my daily walk. So I'll be packing up to move, and my wife is leaving town today, which is a morose thing. She took the train down. I'll drive out this weekend, and hopefully we'll spend more time together soon back at home. It's been great to have her down here. But, talking about the...
BTL says, Norm's words may not get a win in court, but they do speak to the people. I saw him first speaking on Alex's behalf and thought, I need to see this guy speak more. Amen, BTL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's something going on in the country. And, my objective as a lawyer and as a podcaster, and when I bother to write anymore, is to speak the truth as I see it. And, no guarantees that I'm right. In fact, pretty good chance I'm not. But I don't know how else to do it. And so I want to turn to a brief video clip that Tucker Carlson put up last night. I confess that I've not watched Tucker more than 2 or 3 times. I've probably spent more time text messaging with him than I have watching him. And, he's always been decent and generous with his time. But I've been suspicious of the whole cable news in complex, whether it's, Fox. I think I've told this story before many years ago. I'm not a big television watcher. and I'd never seen I'd never seen Fox News. So I went down to the exercise room in the hotel I was staying in and put Fox on, and I thought, man, these people are freaking crazy. So the next night I went down to the exercise room and put on MSNBC, and they were just as crazy. It was just like the same sort of high drive testosterone. The world's on fire. You got to put it out with my water. Details at 11. Buy 6 of these from both sides. And so at that point, I checked into CNN, and I kind of lost interest in CNN after the 2016 election. And I've not been a cable person since. But obviously, like you, I was drawn by the drama of Tucker's departure from Fox and wondered about its relationship to Don Lemon's departure from CNN, and wonder where Tucker will surface next. Last night, he apparently did a brief, it's like 2+ minutes video from his home studio. And I shared it with Mike this morning, and I'd like all of you to listen to it, because I don't know what I think about Tucker Carlson. I don't know what I think about most things. Mike and I talk here and we explore what we think together with you. But give a listen to what Tucker has to say and ask
What does he
yourself
have on
whether
the
he's
wall
not
here
right.
behind him, Norm? What do you think that is?
Well, it's probably the United States Constitution, isn't it? A facsimile of it. Yeah. Of course, with Tucker's money, it might be the one. Maybe the facsimile. Maybe the facsimile's in the Library of Congress, right?
Right.
But give it a listen. Just take a couple minutes here, because and then we'll talk about it.
Cool.
Good evening. It's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country.
That would be me.
People who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also. A lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet, at the same time, this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
So I just, I loved the message, meaning there's a lot of nonsense out there. It's hard to find people discussing things that really matter. The 5 or 6 issues that he raised, if you listen to Mike's and my New Year's, forecast for what we'd cover, they're basically, I think 5 of the 6 are things we said we'd be talking about: emerging science, AI, and so forth. The one thing we don't talk enough about, Mike and I, is climate science. I don't know where, and that's just the lack, not for lack of living on the planet, just for lack of time. I'm not claiming there's nothing there. It's just I can't. I'm not we're not the Encyclopedia Britannica, but the one where I part company with Tucker, and I don't know if I'm being naive here, is the latent conspiracy theory that somehow, big money has gotten together on both the right and left, and they're trying to force us, into a certain mold and to keep truth from being spoken. That I mean, I can understand why he would say that with Rupert Murdoch's footprint still fresh on his pants. But I think Howard Stern nailed it yesterday, on his show when he said what Tucker forgot is that he's just nothing to Murdoch. Murdoch's got billions and he controls the network, and I think Tucker knows it. So, he sounds like a man who still has plenty to say. He sounds like he's looking for a platform. Tucker, we could make room for you here at Law and Legitimacy. But
we'll pay you in compliments, Tucker.
Yeah, we'll pay you in compliments. But I hear a rumor that One American News is flashing a $25 million check his way, and I hope that he's got the intelligence and the integrity to reject that and remember his own mission, the mission that he expressed here. If he's got a little bit of bad faith for participating in Fox's ideological driven content, oh, good for him. We welcome him back to this. I don't want to say to the center, because I don't know that I'm in the center. I don't know that right, left, and center mean anything to me anymore. And it may just be that one of the ways we reform the discussion about issues in the United States is ignoring the ideological spectrum, or even the concept of an ideological spectrum. And how do you do that? It struck me listening to Tucker that he and Vivek Ramaswamy are occupying a similar space in the national discussion of ideas and ideals of civic cooperation. Vivek is talking about a longing for significance and meaning, and he's trying to return to fundamentals. And it seems to me that that's what Tucker is doing too. I see that Ramaswamy's got a new book out. I'll be trying to read that in the next day or so, I'll try to acquire it the next day or so and then read it once I get over licking my bruised ego over the bad reviews I got for my closing argument in the Proud Boys. So, I mean, take a look at Tucker, take a look at Vivek, keep your eyes on the horizon. Because I do think we need a better way to discuss reality. And I do believe that, unless the human race goes extinct, the imperative to live together just is a fact. And we just have to find a way to do it. I had a very interesting discussion yesterday with a parking garage attendant. I drove down to DC for the Proud Boys trial rather than take the train because I had so many files to bring with me. And so I'm now repacking the car and get ready to go. And I had to negotiate my fee since I lost the ticket. The car sat there for 4 months. And he said, "What have you been doing in town?" And I told him, and he said, "Oh, this country crazy, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, and it seems to be getting worse. Yeah. He said, "Well, it was worse in my country." I said, "Where'd you come from?" He said, "Ethiopia. It was civil war and it's just gone from bad to worse." I said, "I think we're tending that way here." He says, "I think we're here." He said this, the parking attendant, and I didn't know if he was kidding or not. And I said, "Well, where do we go from here?" He says, "I ask myself that all the time." And that was a sobering moment for me, because this is a man who fled violence and social discord, looking for a better way to live. And he came to the United States armed with the hope that he would find it here, and he's losing that hope. And there is no place else to go, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see people flocking to another corner of the globe saying there'll be opportunity for me and my family there. We have an immigration crisis in the United States because we remain the last best hope on the planet. But if we become hopeless here, what are our prospects? And so it behooves us all to listen to Tucker, and it behooves us all to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask what primitive satisfaction we get out of throwing ideological bombs at one another when we should be building bridges of common sense and common decency.
Well, the Tucker 2 minutes there did a lot for me, but I don't know that he necessarily introduced ideas that
he didn't. No,
that he hasn't himself covered in one way or another in longer form on his show or on other podcasts. I've spoken to you before about his appearance on Adam Carolla's show a while back, and how impactful that was for me to hear Tucker as the subject of an interview rather than the conductor thereof. And when I was talking to my father recently, and I was making the point to him that it occurred to me that Americans are not producing or building or aspiring for anything obvious to me in real space, and that is really the biggest point of my personal concern with the state of the country. That, if we can look in very recent history, and I say recent in the terms of a couple hundred years, we can look at through the aperture of architecture and get inside the mind of man, of the American man 100 years ago, to understand the state of his world, what priorities may have been, the role of faith and morality and truth and aspiration and art. And it occurs to me now that we are just sort of adrift as a country, that we are compelled to destroy. We are compelled to the baser parts of ourselves individually, and we are compelled to augment the worst parts of our potential humanity, or that which resides within us, and our capabilities, rather than striving for the better parts. And when I hear Tucker speak, and he talks about sort of the poison that is being injected from all parts of, and what if he calls it the uniparty? I think the way that I reckon with this is exactly what I've got on the screen, and exactly why I brought this up. The uniparty, to me, isn't necessarily an observation that the parties are the same, that there's a back room that they go all and hang out in. Perhaps there is in some respects, right? But what I see more than anything is what Vivek rather has referred to as,
is that right? I mean, all week long, I noticed you're like stressing the second.
Vivek. Yeah.
Is that still...
So Tim Pool interview with Vivek, he actually thanks Tim for pronouncing his name correctly. And he doesn't care that people call him Vivek, but it is Vivek. Anyway, so
you say tomato, I say tomato. I'll just call him Ramaswamy. How's that?
Not bad. But what I see within both of these is an observation that it matters not politically and in a partisan way who we elect. It matters mostly about the cultural expectation of those who are staffed to carry out the will of the electorate. And when we refer to things like the managerial class, and we think about how we as a country view President Joe Biden, I think I made the point to my father. I said, irrespective of the substantive merits of the election integrity, these other things, those to me at this point serve more to be a distraction than anything else. But understand that 81 million of us elected what was very obviously an empty vessel. We elected the managerial class. We opted for somebody to be a doddering, foot shuffling, undisciplined, sort of evasive old man, right?
Hey, wait a minute. Are you talking about me?
And to tend to delegate implicitly all of his obligations as our commander in chief, as the chief executive of our country, to those who have been hired into what is a perma-state, a permanent administrative state, the managerial class, to which Vivek refers pretty ubiquitously in all of his speeches in one way or the other.
Yeah, he says here in this thread, I won't just complain about the next Fauci or Comey or Garland. I'll fire them. I'll fire the managerial industrial complex around them, and I'll hold them legally accountable when appropriate. That's how you drain the swamp. Now, that's a weak version of Donald Trump's complaint about the deep state, and it echoes what you hear on the far right about the deep state. And so I don't want to. I hope that Vivek doesn't fall into the conspiracy swamp himself. I think it is important to recognize an administrative state. I think it's important to recognize the importance of big capital and big money in setting the agenda for what is permissible to discuss within the Overton window, so to speak.
Sure.
And where I applaud Ramaswamy is his willingness to challenge it. I just don't know if he's got the chops to sustain it. And
I don't know that I think I said early on when I first brought up Vivek's name as someone that I was paying attention to, who had come across my timeline, that was saying and writing things that I resonated with, that I didn't think that he was going to be able to get over the hump, but that someone, whoever is able to get over that hump, should absorb him into their cabinet, because what he is doing extremely well is, consider the Don Lemon episode. He is sitting across from the vocal poisonous issues that we've referred to on here quite a lot, and he is remaining, as Tucker would say, calm, right, and confident, and he is countering the points. That is extremely necessary, because I think at this point, this isn't about politics; it's about culture.
Well, I think that's probably right, and I think that's the discussion. And if it's not about politics, it's about culture. Then the candidates really become about character. That's one of the things that has impressed me most about being in D.C. for the last 4 months, is looking around at all this stuff. You go by the White House and you think somebody's in there paying attention, and you read accounts of the national security crises and people working around the clock, and then every now and then you're walking down the street and a phalanx of cars with sirens screaming and the black limousines will go by, and these are people with important things on their mind occupying these institutions. But at the end of the day, when decisions get to be made, or have to be made, individuals make them, and what we vote for are people who we hope will make the right decisions, who we trust have the character to withstand the pressure and to keep their wits about them in a crisis. And maybe we get them, maybe we don't. So I'll be watching. I mean, we'll pivot from this. It's not like Mike and I have a candidate that we're behind at this point 100%. I just note the Tucker thing because if he's serious about the questions he's raising, it's a good moment for him to break out and get out from under the corporate dollar. And he and Vivek, I just said it right. Oh, he and Ramaswamy are talking the same thing, because there are big issues out there. Among them, artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah. So I think that these two things fold into each other extremely well, because ultimately what Tucker and what Vivek are rejecting is this notion that our individuality, our individual importance, and our own sovereignty is kind of being stamped
on. Our significance.
Yes.
That's what we're contributing to the debate. What defines human experience is the quest for significance.
Yes, is ultimately being diluted and collectivized, right? And there is no easier way to communicate that to Gen Z and the younger demographic than this episode right here, Norm.
Well, not everybody can see the screen. What is this episode?
So this is Ghostwriter 977's AI generated, a generative artificial intelligence engine. It generated a song called Heart on My Sleeve, which is completely fabricated. It scraped the internet for all sorts of audio and audio patterns, etc., and put together a song called Heart on My Sleeve and distributed it to all major music platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it. It went up. And what it does is it says that it is a creation of Drake, who is, the A-list music personality in America, right? He is among the elite and the most visible and the most successful and the most influential. And Weeknd, who happens to be not too far behind him musically. Drake, more known for rap, but sort of has always existed as more of a hybrid. And Weeknd, who is more the vocalist, but leans into the same sonics that Drake does. Very influential in culture right now.
So what happened? Somebody said to an AI device, create something using the sound of Weeknd and the lyrics of Drake, and they created Heart on My Sleeve?
Yes, and distributed it everywhere, right? And this was completely sort of a guerrilla style warfare here. So successful and so viral that Universal Music Group exercised its power to have all of those major platforms remove the song from their platforms.
Well, now that raises an interesting legal issue. Is this a copyright infringement?
Well, and that is the question. So what I put on the screen here, and for those audio only listeners, this is reason.com, and it's under their artificial intelligence header. It's dated April 26th, so yesterday at 4 p.m. And the title of the article is called "A Fake Drake Song Shows the Potential for AI's Future." Meanwhile, content creators and corporations want copyright regulations for artificial intelligence. Now, setting the table a little bit, because I know that we will likely not be able to cover comprehensively this topic today, but you and I have talked before, Norm, about the notion of defamation related to AI
defamation, right?
Mm-hmm. Related to artificial intelligence generated news stories and what have you, content for public consumption on the internet that gets pulled into Wall Street Journal articles, New York Times articles, these sorts of things, and against whom is someone alleging defamation supposed to launch a lawsuit. And in this case, when AI at least partially is responsible for generating what we would obviously consider content, but not necessarily a recording, because no one recorded it. It was
no one. And the question I threw you was a softball. I was hoping you'd hit it out of the park. Copyright refers to human generated copying. And so if a machine does it, it's not a human. And so by definition, as a matter of law, arguably there can be no copyright infringement against a device that sounds like you, takes your ideas, and represents itself to be you, even if that occurs to your detriment. This is clearly a significant legal problem that's going to require some amendment to the law.
Yep. So we've already got the biggest corporate interests in the game looking to develop this body of law. So what I've got highlighted here is the question of whether Drake's body of work or his copyrighted body of work being used to quote unquote train the AI engine is sufficient to lend itself to a claim for copyright infringement or any sort of actionable claim within that umbrella.
Mimicry is a great form of humor, though. If I study all of Robin Williams' recordings and manage to sound just like him for 90 seconds, does that make me have I infringed on his rights, on his image? Have I stolen something from him or his estate?
I think that what you're asking is exactly why this is sort of we're so off base as a society in covering these issues, because to me, when you look at sort of it's Universal Music Group, who not only do they have these rights, they're the ones obligated to protect them, et cetera. I get that. However, the only reason that we're even trying to develop this body of law is to protect corporate profits, right? We're not concerned with the fact that an AI engine is mimicking the personality or the humanity or the body of work or someone that the rest of civilization would consider to be a modern artist. We're not concerned with that significance, the diminution of human significance that underlies this whole thing. We're only really concerned about it because we need to figure out how the hell to sue this whatever so that we can protect our corporate profits and our monopoly and our market share over the distribution of music. That's it.
Do consumers care? So, I like Jimi Hendrix. I liked Janis Joplin. They both died too young. I could have used more music from them. Well, if we set AI into doing a remix or whatever of Jimi Hendrix or Janis, maybe we can get more of them. And maybe I'd get the same pleasure listening to AI's presentation of them that I do when I listen to a live recording. Is that wrong?
I don't know.
Because whose significance matters at this point? You're railing against the prospect that we're concerned with the wrong thing. We're concerned with the corporation's profits. I get that. And then you're concerned with it protecting the integrity of the creator. I get that. But they're creating for an audience. And what's going to drive the AI engine into fearful places is that from a consumer's perspective, we don't care how we get our pleasures as long as we get them at a price we can afford. So the perfect knockoff of Jimmy done by, Chat GPT 6, let's say. I might listen to a new version of All Along the Watchtowers that it sings and not be able to tell the difference. And if I'm willing to pay 99 cents for it to the derogation of Hendricks' estate, what's the harm? And I think there is a harm, but I'm playing devil's advocate here because I just don't know the answer.
Right. Look, and I'm probably going to play devil's advocate a little bit more, because if this ends up being, the flick that knocks the whole house of cards down with respect to the music cartels and the record label cartels, I'm all for that. Whatever can get me out of conversations with ASCAP and BMI and CSAC and any of these organizations that heckle the shit out of like small bars and retailers that want to have live music or do like a music trivia night or something like that, but have to pay for a license to do that kind of stuff, is the most absurd thing in the world. There is a record label cartel, and it is something that needs to be dealt with in terms of consumer protection, in my opinion. But I think so if AI is able to deconstruct that whole artifice and force us back to the drawing board, I'm all for that. But I think that that's a lot of damage to be done, right, in order to resolve this narrow issue. And it is a relatively narrow issue, but I look at it like this, Norm. At what point can AI walk into a bar with an acoustic guitar, having just had a conversation with his or her brother-in-law, smoked a cigarette, is feeling down and able to strum in a way that he didn't strum yesterday, and put a rasp in his voice that connects with the guy sitting over there that needed something to hit him in that way.
I hear you.
Right.
Or let's play Manchurian Candidate. At what point does a generative AI decide to appear in the hologrammatic president because the real one stubbed his toe walking up Air Force One and addressed the nation? And what do we know?
Well, until he can blow the smoke of a Lucky Strike in my face, I don't know that I don't know that I care. Right.
Well, I hear you. Well, look, so we're out of time, and we will revisit this. I want to hawk my presentation or my appearance at Mohegan Sun on May 18th. That's a casino up in northeastern Connecticut. I'm going to resume the comedy gig that I put on ice for a while I followed Alex Jones and the Proud Boys around their country for a while and reassessed my comedic mission. And I'll give you a little forecast of things to come. I'm going to be talking about caskets. I mean, everybody's in the market for caskets. I knew a woman, I once heard about a woman. She was so concerned about how she looked. She was on her route an ambulance was coming to her home to take her to the hospital. Her husband feared she was having a heart attack. She said, but I got to put my makeup on. So she got to the hospital. She was hooked up to the EKG. The Enterprise and Casket salesman came to her and said, look, ma'am, I've got a casket, the deluxe casket here. There's a mirror on the lid so that when it's closed, you can readjust yourself from time to time. Caskets are vanity. Life is vanity. My performance will be vanity. I'm hoping you'll come out and see us. And I'm hoping that you'll come out and see Mike and I again tomorrow. As the Biggs trial fades into the sunset, I'm sure there'll be other trials to come, but this one has been uniquely preoccupying. Thank you for coming and listening to me and to Mike daily while we made this a priority. We'll make it a bigger priority in the weeks and months to come.
We'll trademark selfie casket. How's that?
Selfie casket. Yeah, I'm working on it. It needs a lot of work, but I've decided caskets are the way to go because everybody dies. I mean, it's a captive audience. I mean, imagine the happy parents. They've got their new child. Look, we've got adjustable caskets, one for each side. Life is filled with fortuities. Should your child die at 5, we can bury him not quite alive, but in this casket that'll keep him comfortable. There are ways to go.
There's dark mirror. Dark mirror is upon us, Norm. Right. We will be back 7:45 a.m. tomorrow. Audio only. We love you. Give us a 5-star rating. If you're watching us live on Rumble or Twitter or YouTube Live, to put the thumbs up, and please share the stream. Every little bit helps, and do consider becoming a member and subscriber on Locals. Now that Norm is back into his full form, recovering for 4 months of grueling trial work, we will be getting our wind up, as they say here in the South. So, Norm, we'll see you tomorrow.
You will.
Bye.